after his heart. It's Thursday. I hope you guys are having a fantastic day. I'm gonna wait for Katie to jump on. She's gonna join us today. There she is. Good morning, good morning. Good morning, Audrey. Hey, Katie. Good morning. What did you say?
I said, good morning.
Morning.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Hey, baby. Can you go sit? Okay. So my kids are getting up earlier and earlier. I think they know that we are doing this.
Yes, they do.
So this morning we are going to be talking about holiness. I got this. I don't know if you guys have heard of the Bible Project, but it is on YouTube. And they do word studies, and they actually go through the whole Bible, which is super cool. They go through the whole Bible and break it down. We've been watching it with our kids at night instead of reading the Bible. We like to change it up because we've read through the Bible with them a couple of times, and then we'll do a little devotional, and now we're watching these YouTube videos on the Bible. It's just fun to kind of change it up. So that's what we're doing right now, and we have just fallen in love with these videos. They're short and sweet and explain things to the point, and our kids can understand them. So if you haven't seen it before, check out the Bible Project on YouTube. It's great for even just you, like if you just want to go through it. But we're going through it with our kids. But they did this word study on holiness, and it was so good that I wanted to share it with you guys. And I'll put a link to the bottom when I'm finished with this video too. But I'm gonna go through this idea of holiness. So everyone has heard the word holy if you've been in church for any amount of time, if you've read the Bible, if you sang songs. Obviously, the word holy is used a lot in the church. And so what most people, when they hear the word holy, they think like morally pure, like you're making good decisions, you're doing all that kind of stuff. And that's true, that's part of it. But in the Bible, holiness is it's this bigger word. And it's more rich than just being morally pure when it's talking about God. Holiness is this idea that there's this creative force behind the whole universe. That God is the one and only being that created beautiful things, this world. He's the source of our life, and he's the only one. He's unique in his ability to create and define our world. And so that's kind of the deeper definition of God and his holiness. And so I wanted to use a metaphor to help you understand. So I'm going to use the sun. And so the sun is unique to our solar system. It's the only thing that through the sun, life is created. That's the way that plants can live. We need the sun, all these things. And so because of that, you could say that the sun is holy. And so taking that even further, the area around the sun is also considered holy. But the closer that you get to the sun, the more intense it gets in its power and goodness. And if you get too close to the sun, it will kill you, right? It will annihilate you. And so in that same way, I want to use to describe God's holiness. So if you are in an impure state, God's presence it can destroy you, right? Because God's presence and sin, they don't go together. And so if you get closer to the sun, it's gonna kill you. If you get closer to God in an impure state, in the Old Testament, it could kill you. And so this is just this paradox of this like dangerous presence, right? And so we see this for the first time when Moses is standing before the burning bush, and he sees this burning bush, and he goes to it, and the bush is burning, and it's on fire, but the bush isn't burning up. And he sees this, and he goes closer, and God tells him, hey, you're standing on the ground, take off your sandals. And he does, and he covers his face, and he's afraid, and God says, don't come any closer. It's intense. His presence is intense, right? And so then this is explained even further, God's holiness, when he's in the temple, when God created the temple. So there's this one spot in the middle. I don't know if you're familiar with the temple that was in Israel, but there's a spot in the middle, and it's called the Holy of Holies, the most holy place. And you may not enter this room. There's a very specific people that could enter this room, they had to do all these things first. And so if you, I don't, they used to, we talked about this a little bit when we were going through Luke, that lots. What did you say?
Oh, I said drawing lots. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so he gets to go in, and he has to do all these things first. And so of course, to go in the temple, you had to be morally pure. Like that was a given. Like your life. In fact, like they would tie a rope around the bottom of the people's feet going in, so if they died, they could pull them out. Like it wasn't just this, oh, I'm just gonna waltz into God's presence like we do today. Like, you know, I'm not gonna examine my heart. Like if you did that, you would die. And so it was this intense thing. And so this was the Holy of Holies. And so again, like morally pure is a given, but God also talked about them becoming ritually pure. And so he gave them all these instructions in the book of Leviticus to talk about how to become ritually pure. And he said, part of this was, it's a state of removing yourself from anything relating to death. So skin disease, like don't touch anyone that has skin disease. Do not be around dead bodies. Don't blood, like people that are in an impure state. You have to stay away from things that were considered impure. And this is ritual. I'm talking about a ritual purity. And so these were not necessarily anything that was like sinful. Like it wasn't sinful to have a skin disease, it wasn't sinful, but like to be pure, ritually pure, to enter his presence, you couldn't be around these things. And so again, that's what Leviticus, it was describing all the things that they had to do to become ritually pure. Have I lost anybody? Are you tracking?
Yeah, it's good.
Okay, so this keeps going. It doesn't end in Leviticus. It keeps going to this prophet named Isaiah. And if you've read the book of Isaiah, Isaiah has this vision, and it's kind of a crazy vision where he goes up to heaven and he realizes that he's in God's presence. And he's like afraid because he knows I shouldn't be here. Like I should be dead. I'm not worthy to be in God's presence. And while he's standing there, this creature called a seraphim, if you've ever heard of it, it flies over and it has a burning coal that you use to make a fire, like a coal. And he flies over and he touches it to Isaiah's lips. And when he touches it to his lips, it purifies him. It just changes him from the inside out. And it's this weird picture. And you read it and you're kind of like, well, that's weird. A coal, the seraphim comes over, it touches a coal, he's made pure. Okay, so what does that mean? And when the seraphim does that, when he touches the coal to his lips, he says, your guilt is taken away and your sin is atoned for. So why would the coal take his guilt away and atone his sins, right? So normally, in the Old Testament, if you touch something that was impure, that impurity transferred to you. So you touch skin disease, you touch blood, you touch death, that impurity came upon you, right? But here's this new idea that this coal touches Isaiah's lips and he becomes pure. Weird, right? It's never been, no one's ever seen that kind of stuff before. And so here Isaiah is standing in God's presence and he's not destroyed, he's transformed. He's transformed by God's presence, not destroyed. This is amazing. So it goes even further. And we look at Ezekiel. We go all the way to Ezekiel, and Ezekiel has a vision. And he has this vision where he's standing at the temple and he sees some water trickling out of the temple. Well, then this water kind of turns into a stream, and then it kind of turns into a deep river. And this river, as it's going along, it's leaving all these green trees, beauty, and it's behind it. When it's going, it's leaving beauty. And this river runs all the way to the Dead Sea where everything just comes to life and becomes beautiful and magnificent. And so here, again, we see that God's presence is coming out. And instead of becoming pure and then going into the temple, what is happening is that God's presence is trickling out of the temple and leaving purity in its wake. Amazing, right? This is so great. And so, but what does this all mean? They're confused. They don't understand. They don't know. What does this mean? What do these visions mean? And we don't know until we meet this man named Jesus. And he comes to us and says, I have come to fulfill all these old visions. in new and exciting ways, in ways that you've never seen before. And what does Jesus do? He goes out to the people and he touches the impure, right? He raises people to life. He heals skin disease. He heals the woman who's bleeding, right? He touches the impure. And what the Old Testament would say is that if he did that, he would become impure himself, right? But that's not what happens. Instead, they become pure. His touch transforms them. His touch heals them. His touch takes away their disease and impurities. And so it's like that holy coal that we see in Isaiah. Jesus is becoming that holy coal, touching and leaving purity in its wake. And so Jesus goes on even further to say, this is why he says to his disciples, hey, we are God's temple. We are his church. We're going to go out and we're going to touch the impure and make them pure and be streams of living water. And out of us will flow God's goodness and purity and righteousness. And he's fulfilling these Old Testament visions of holiness. And so that's all. It's like, okay, but where are we now? What does this mean now? Well, obviously now we are to be like Jesus. That when we touch, we don't have to be afraid to go out to the impure, to go out to the sinners, to go out where there's death and disease, because we have Jesus, we have life, and it doesn't get on us. Instead, what we touch transfers to them. Because of this coal, because of Jesus, because of the streams of living water, we don't have to be afraid of impure things. We can touch them and they become pure if we have Jesus. And so all of this gets wrapped up in the book of Revelation. The last book, the last few sentences, it talks about, it shows a vision. John has a vision of the whole earth, and water is coming down from the earth, and there's a new earth, and his people are transformed, and now everything is pure because Jesus has returned. And so I just wanted you guys to get this amazing picture of holiness and purity today, starting all the way back with the temple in Leviticus, and then Isaiah's vision, and then Ezekiel's vision, and then Jesus, and then John's vision. The Bible is one it just flows together. It all comes together. It's no mistake. Everything lines up with, it's a beautiful picture of holiness. So I hope that made sense to you guys today. I hope you got it. Did you follow, Katie? Do you have anything to add?
Well, no, I just, because whenever you were talking about holiness, my thing is, it just, I guess in today's terms, or in how I think about it, whenever I think about holiness, I think it's something that he has called us to, that we will never perfect, but it is the perfecting of us. And the holiness means we are set apart. Like, talking about his church and things like that. His church was set apart. And it was, in the things that are holy to God, like the tabernacle and everything else, and like the inside, it was away from others' eyes and things like that. It was holy. It was set apart. It was hidden as a mystery. It's just, it's beautiful. I love because it just made it more of a mystery and more almost romantic and just beautiful. Just that picture all the way through the Bible of this holiness, like coming in. And I just feel like, as God's children and as his people, that we are called to holiness, and we are called to be set apart, and we are called to look different. So that in the point, like you were talking about the sun, that was the most beautiful picture. So just imagine, like, as we get closer to our Heavenly Father and those impurities are burned out, because he's like the goldsmith, like leaning over, just burning those impurities out as we get closer and closer to his presence. He is pulling and burning all these things out. But then as people are attracted to us as Christians, they're doing the same thing. They're being pulled in that same direction. So it's not about my holiness, but it's about the holiness of my Lord and Savior, and just being pulled and drawn into that. And we just should always look different every day. We should look more and more like him, because we're being drawn into that, and all that has been being burned out of us, and we are being set apart, so for his work and for his will. So, but no, that was a wonderful, I love it. I've never heard it described like that, and I love it.
I loved it too. And there's more. Like I said, they have all kinds of stuff. I'm gonna add the link to the bottom, but just fascinating. And it's fascinating that we had even been studying that about the temple and all this. It's God is amazing. I'm glad that
Did you read what Audrey said? Read what Audrey said.
Holiness isn't behavior management. It is our bloodline, and it is a state of the heart. Yes, Audrey.
That is good. That is really good. I love
Audrey. So awesome.
Yes.
Okay, so tomorrow we are going to be talking about Katie actually brought this up. I'm very excited. I'm going to get to dig deep today about us becoming less so that he can become greater.
Yes.
So that's what we're talking about tomorrow. So if you guys want to study a little bit and join us tomorrow at 6:15 a.m., we'll just keep going, you guys. I'm so excited we got to meet with you today. We love you all. Have a great day. Bye-bye.